Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Of course, we have more James Gunn for you, because that seems to be anything and everything that the media wants to talk about. And of course, it's everything that James Gunn wants to talk about. In fact, DC is basically James Gunn. It used to be Zack Snyder, now it's James Gunn, and eventually it's going to be somebody else, especially since James Gunn has claimed his job is unsustainable. Unsustainable long term, as a matter of fact. And you know what? He's right. I could not agree more. So let's talk about it. Here we go. Now, before we get started, just a real quick reminder. I don't have a problem with James Gunn. I have a problem with the fact that I have so many of you, about 60% of you that aren't subscribed to the channel. So do me a small favor, please, pretty please, double check you're still subscribed. That's all you have to do. Hit the subscribe button, turn on all notifications. That means you hit the little bell down there, turn everything on so you don't miss anything, because I do tons of live streams, tons of videos. You don't want to miss them. I assure you. You'll be missing an awful lot out there, and you'll even miss me moving around on the screen, apparently. But I don't want you to miss anything about James Gunn, because he seems to be a daily event here. And if Trevor Denning over at That Park Place continues to write great stories, then we'll continue to cover it, which I think is absolutely bonkers sauce. But let's start here. This isn't a surprise. As a matter of fact, if you watched any of my videos over the last few weeks, some of them have been about James Gunn, and specifically about maybe him not being around as long as maybe he thought he would be originally. Maybe his pal Peter Safran will leave with him. Maybe they're both not long for this world, because it seems like Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdy are taking more authoritative roles in, their positions that they have currently over there at Warner Brothers Discovery. And who knows what will happen once Paramount acquires the studio, which I think is most likely the event that will occur. I don't see how Netflix gets past any of the regulatory hurdles that they're going to encounter. But from the story, according to Matt McGloin over at Cosmic Book News, James Gunn may soon step down as CEO of DC Studios, an article that I've seen already, and the possibility is casting doubt into the future of the DC universe, which Gunn has been leading since parent studio Warner Brothers shuttered the previous DC expanded universe, or any and everything that Zack Snyder was doing. And you know what? Nobody can blame them. There was a huge disconnect between fans of Zack Snyder and fans of the DCEU, and whether or not those two things were the same thing, and whether or not they were financially successful, because they certainly weren't competitive with what Marvel had been doing. Although Marvel these days looks an awful lot like DCEU from the old days. In fact, they've been doing not so much great things recently, especially as the box office numbers have dwindled. Not that, the most recent Superman didn't actually, do much better. Speaking of which, Gunn is also currently in pre-production of Man of Tomorrow, the sequel to last summer's Superman, only the third feature film planned for the DCU so far, which makes a lot of sense. He had a lot of TV projects in the works that, maybe aren't exactly the cup of tea of most of the traditional comic book movie viewers. In a recent interview with Variety, Gunn compared himself to Superman and Lex Luthor, as we covered yesterday, another article written by Trevor. In fact, he admitted that being the head of the studio and director is taxing. He referred to his dual roles as an experiment, which Cosmic Book News called alarming. Well, I'm not sure if alarming is the right term, but obviously it implies that things aren't set in stone, which I agree with. Matt's spot on when it comes to his coverage of James Gunn and all of the various interviews and quotes that he uses in those stories. And I'm looking at this particular story coming to us from, again, That Park Place, where you can read it as well and find out that it doesn't really matter which corporate owner ends up with Warner Brothers Discovery at the end of the day. The decision is going to be whether or not you're keeping James Gunn, and Netflix has a successful working relationship, supposedly, with Zack Snyder. I'm not so certain Netflix will jive with James Gunn and his informal approach to, well, how things work. Which brings us to the question of sustainability, which, again, if you are in the modern era, this word has a lot more meanings all of a sudden. Gunn told Variety that he initially turned down the co-CEO position, saying that he didn't want to do what president of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, does. And you know what? Nobody could blame him. I wouldn't want to do that role. I would want to be intimately involved in the actual creation of content rather than just kind of move chess pieces around and try to put the best creator with the best idea in the best story I could muster. Which I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think Marvel has done since Endgame. Regardless, he only accepted the position when he learned that he would be sharing the responsibility with his pal, Peter Safran. But he added, I still don't know if it's a sustainable long term. It's a lot. There just aren't enough hours in the day, and it doesn't seem like he's enjoying it very much. And it doesn't seem like fans may be enjoying it very much either. Now, Cosmic Book News suggests that Gunn will use the overwhelming, that's a big word, workload as the excuse to step down. It may be that the director would prefer to focus all of his energy on making movies rather than also co-running a studio. I still don't think it's all that taxing. I think you just make a decision about what stories to move forward with and what ones you don't. And it might require a little extra reading, but I don't think it's all that much more work. In fact, if they gave it to me, I would just add another zero to my paycheck and move on with my day. The kind of movies that James Gunn likes to make are probably different than, well, anybody likes to watch, but we'll get to that later in the story. You see, James said he likes to make unconventional spectacles, which I would say nobody really enjoys as much as he does. And outside of the weird success with Guardians of the Galaxy, I think he stepped too far afield for anybody to get too excited with anything he's got coming in the future. He added that he's not really concerned about ever being nominated for Best Director, and I would agree with him. He doesn't have any problem with that ever becoming a reality, because nobody would suggest that at all. He says, I like making the kind of movies that I make, he says, and I like making pop cinema, for lack of a better term. Then you should try to make some, because it's been a while since we got rid of, Guardians 3, and you said goodbye to a cast that worked well. You invested your time and efforts into something that isn't as much beloved, like Peacemaker, and followed it up with something that was a little divisive in Creature Commandos. And then you went on your Superman adventure that I would say a lot of the audience found unsatisfying and, well, kind of fearful of what they were going to get next, which is drunk Supergirl. Tell you what, I may be fearful of that too. Audience response to his films has been mixed. That's being kind. Forbes showed that Superman lost money at the box office. Well, I could have told you that and probably did. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did as things were coming down to the wire. And if you take a look at the next entry for the DCU, the HBO limited series Peacemaker failed to appear on the Nielsen charts at all, beginning to end, none of the episodes. And you know what? That's not surprising. Finally, this summer's Supergirl, which again is raising huge red flags, not just for me, but for many others, may be much less appealing than Gunn had intended it to be. Not to mention the fact that they're having to rework a lot of footage into an Asian version of the teaser trailer to see if they can get any interest whatsoever, which I would say falls very far short as one of the films that'll be releasing in Asia with very few people looking forward to it, especially those in China. Now, the movie was written by Anna Nogueira, based on a story by Tom King, which already makes it a disaster and predictable as to what's actually going to happen, despite having a different director in Craig Gillespie that still has all of Gunn's influence represented in the teaser trailer itself and in the wild use of the music that's selected that could be from a Sony Walkman in Guardians of the Galaxy. But we'll set all that aside and pretend that maybe Gillespie got to exercise some creativity. I don't think so, but let's pretend. The DCU appears to many that it's still finding its feet, but with a leadership change at Warner Brothers on the horizon, the window may be closing. I would suggest that the window might already be shut, and we just don't know it yet. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm right. A career safety net. The Man of Tomorrow will arrive in July of 2027, July 9th to be specific, and by that time, the purchase of Warner Brothers will have been completed, settled. We'll know who owns it and who's going to move forward, or we'll be watching regulatory hearings as to why Netflix should never own anything other than their streaming service. But the film's performance may determine Gunn's future with the DCU, or the DCU's future entirely. More than just the stress of the dual responsibilities or artistic ambitions, Gunn may not have a job anymore. Cosmic Book News reported since October that insiders are saying that if Paramount successfully purchases Warner Brothers, Gunn is out regardless. Would it surprise anybody to see a Snyder return? At this point, if this is true and this happens, I don't think so. In an industry where image is everything and talent is only as good as their last project, Gunn may be laying out a safety net for his career. The director seems unsure of his future with Warner Brothers and the DCU, which he should be. Only time will tell if Cosmic Book News has read the signs correctly, or let's just call them what they are, the tea leaves. And right now, a lot of people on the inside are spilling the tea about concerns for Supergirl specifically and the long-term health and survival of the DCU. No wonder Gunn thinks everything is unsustainable, and I won't argue with him there. What I will say is that despite my extreme dislike for James Gunn, for the very many reasons that I have elucidated in previous videos, I'll just say this. So far, he has not presented a lovable DCU that can compete with and or replace a failing Marvel that Kevin Feige has led astray, which I don't think anybody can argue, but I leave that question for you. What do you think? Do you think that James Gunn's future is limited? Do you think his time at the DCU is limited? Do you think he and Peter Safran will find their way to another day in another location that may hire them for the talents that they actually have and not ones that they were perceived to have because of a successful Marvel run? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. Just probably not watching any of the Gunn films. Sorry.